Hey guys, welcome to another edition of the Overland Trail Guides podcast. My name is Ben. I'll be your host. This is episode 004, and we're going to be talking about the Kofa Pioneer Trail in southern Arizona. If you want to learn more about this particular route, you can check it out on our website at www.overlandtrailguides.com. We have tons of other great routes there as well. And for this particular episode, we have John Liotti. John, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey, Ben. Man, thanks for having me here. So, you heard my name. I'm John Liotti. And I'm a bit of a newbie in the overlanding community. So my background is more in motorcycles and dual sport and road racing and street riding. So over the past couple of years, I was attracted to the overland community, and especially with the various intersections, I think, with my motorcycle passion also. So super excited to be in the community, and it's been heck of fun so far.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, we went on this adventure recently, which is why I invited John on. There's a lot of crossover, as you mentioned, between like the dual sport, what people do on bikes. Maybe you can give those users that have only done the overlanding or new to overlanding and just give a little bit of background on that to kind of understand where you're coming from.
Yeah. So, I'm the type of, I'm a little stuck up a little bit. I consider myself a dual sport rider, not an adventure rider. ADV riders have the reputation of sort of riding to Starbucks and not out in the trails. So for me, there's lots of overlap because I really love the dirt and want to be out in the wilderness. And, a lot of the routes are the same. Some of the gear is the same, specifically around the camping stuff. And just the passion of dirt riding and sort of being out there, I think has a lot of overlap. So,
yeah.
And a lot of differences too, obviously. But I think these two communities really can benefit from each other.
Yeah, absolutely. And, just to give a little bit of background on Overland Trail Guides, I definitely look at ADV Rider, other forums out there as well, trying to get ideas, tracks, and all that stuff that we can feature on the website. So, definitely see the overlap there. And as you mentioned, you just started overlanding. What rig do you have, and what are you using right now?
So I have a stock Tacoma 2018 TRD off-road, and it is stock right now. So I just ordered rock sliders and a skid plate. So I'm starting to build it out and trying to figure out sort of how far to go with it. I'm not out there trying to do, rock climbing. I'm much more into the grand touring piece of it. So I'll build it appropriately, and I don't have a ton of money, especially with two passions that can really suck you dry. So
I hear you. Even one.
Yeah, I'm telling you. So I'm trying to be selective and build it smartly, because it is my daily driver also.
Yeah. And I'm in the same boat as well, where I definitely drive my wife's car. But otherwise I'm driving a big hulking Land Cruiser, getting like 9 miles a gallon around town when I'm driving it. And I imagine you're probably getting those sliders as a result of this trip too, right? Just
there was a couple hairy spots.
Yeah. We'll talk a little bit about that in a second. I did want to talk to our viewers about the Kofa Pioneer Trail. So it's right outside of Quartzsite in Yuma in southern Arizona. This particular route is about 250 miles. And I would say if you're going to do the entire route, you want to plan at least 4 days, and I would probably say 5 is probably better to kind of get the full experience. Otherwise, you're just going to kind of be driving all day. Some people don't mind that, but it is really beautiful out there. And if you want to take it in, I would say try to spread it out over 5 days. So it's set in the Kofa Wilderness, which is the Kofa Wildlife National Refuge. It was established in 1939. It's about 660,000 acres. The Boy Scouts actually were the ones that lobbied to get it put aside to protect bighorn sheep. And what's really cool about this place is, even though it's in the desert and it gets hot as F during the summertime, there's a lot of really cool like mines out there, old mining trails, old homesteads, and some of these are actually active mines as well. A lot of them are abandoned, but we did see some active mining sites, including the King of Arizona mine, which Kofa is named for, K of A, King of Arizona. And then as far as like the optimal time to travel, you could go any time of year. I wouldn't recommend going in the middle of summer just because you're probably going to be well above triple digits. You could be 110, 115 out there during the day. So what we'd recommend is probably going between October and May. We went right before Thanksgiving, and I think that the weather was perfect. It was warm during the day, got cool at night. But other than that, it was at neither extreme. As far as an appropriate rig, you definitely want a legitimate 4x4. So as John mentioned, he has a stock Tacoma. And other than, I think you upgraded your tires, right? So you have some proper all-terrains.
Yeah. I got the right tires.
Yeah, which I would definitely recommend because there are definitely some rocky sections that you're going to go over. But you have a pretty long wheelbase. You have the long bed with the extra cab, and we definitely had some close calls there. But you made it through everything without any sort of rock slider. So if you were in something like a 4Runner or a Wrangler, you're going to be fine as long as you have the proper tires. Cool. So one other thing that I would mention, especially for those of us that have very thirsty vehicles, I would bring some extra fuel. I don't know if you needed it, John, but if you do the entire route, including the last leg up to Big I Mine, you're going to use a lot of gas. Even though there doesn't look like there's a lot of elevation gain on this particular route, there are a lot of up and downs and kind of slow moving that just, for somebody like me that has a big 5.7 V8, it just sucks the gas and it's gone. So would definitely recommend that as well.
Yeah, I got down to an eighth of a tank before we got out of there. So I had 5 gallons with me. And I'm glad I did because that gave me the peace of mind to know that we could get out of there. Because we were out in the middle of nowhere. So, there's not much recourse if you get stuck.
Yeah, definitely. So why don't we jump into the adventure? Day 0, as I like to call it, because we didn't hit the trail. So the situation was this, John and our other friend, Daniel, they took Friday off. I decided I was going to work that day and probably try to get out of town around 3 p.m. You guys were on I-5 coming from the San Francisco Bay Area, headed south towards Palm Springs. What time did you guys get on I-5?
See, Daniel and I met about 1 o'clock in Santanella. Right about then. And we came down I-5 and then took 58 over through the Mojave down to 15 and dropped in the back way just to avoid some of the LA traffic.
Yeah, and then what I had done is I'd give them some kind of a top 3 camping spots in the Palm Springs and Indio area. I said, try to go to this one. If this one doesn't work, then go to this one and then go to this one. And I didn't give them the route to the number 1 spot. I did drop a pin and say, hey, here's where you can come in from the freeway. But I don't know if you guys caught that. So when I got down there around midnight and I drove in and they were telling me, oh, you need to put it in 4 low and you need to do this and you're going to hit a gnarly section. And I was there in 3 minutes. I was like on a graded BLM road. And I was like, are they just messing with me or did they really go through that?
Yeah, that's not how we came there. So we came this back route through this pretty gnarly section, especially, I got a little nervous at night because it's, Daniel's got a different kind of rig. He's lifted and he's got all the equipment and things, running the Toyota was a little sketchy at night because I didn't know what I was going to get hung up on or anything, but we made it through, thankfully, but it was, I definitely would have enjoyed your side of it. I would have loved that first section in the daytime, but nighttime, it's a little bit sketchy.
Yeah, especially if you don't, like you said, you don't have a lift, you don't have sliders, you're not familiar with the trail. And then the lighting setup with like shadows and everything can make it really difficult to navigate at night. So I totally empathize with you at that. So we stayed at Palm Springs. We got hit with a little bit of a windstorm, not much of a surprise being out in the desert. I don't think any of us slept too great that night other than Thomas, which is my 5-year-old, which, to put that in perspective, we went camping in the Feather River Canyon earlier this year. And if you've ever camped there, the freight train is on the other side. And it came through about 4 times in the middle of the night. Some of those trains are well over a mile long and he didn't wake up. It's like screeching and honking and he slept like a prince. So good for him. Us old guys, not so much. So we head out of Palm Springs. We head over to Kofa. and we get into Arizona. We cross the Colorado River. Obviously, not a whole lot of water left there anymore. Kind of sad, but it is what it is. And there are a lot of people out there camping. At first, I was kind of taken aback. I was going, there are a lot of vans out here. There are a lot of campers. There are a lot of RVs. Are there going to be a lot of people on this trail? Because we went to Queen Canyon and Skull Rock, which I thought was actually a really great intro to Kofa. I'd love to hear kind of like what your first take on it when we went there, because you'd never been down here, and I'm not sure you knew what to expect.
No, I think, and you're right. I think when we first started coming in, I'm like, oh crap, look at all these, people that are out here. So I was hoping for more of a wilderness experience, but we found our way in to the Skull Rock area, and it was breathtaking. The first area was very canyony and, beautiful mountains. And, like you said, the weather was perfect. So it was a great entryway into the route, because it sort of got our feet wet. The thing that was really interesting, and I'm sure we'll talk more about this, is that there seemed like there's a lot of variety, a lot more variety of topography than I expected. Initially we had those high mountains around Skull Rock, and then sort of it changed from there on. So it was a great way to sort of get our feet wet. But then again, somebody else was at Skull Rock, so I was hoping to experience that myself. But it's fine. They were cool people, and we were happy to see them.
Yeah. So once we got up to Skull Rock, which is in Queen Canyon, surrounded by some really cool rock formations, cliffs, some cool mountains and stuff like that, we arrived. Somebody was actually, as John had said, they were camping inside of Skull Rock. So they had their tent there. They had all their supplies in there. They were gracious enough to let my 5-year-old go and check it out. And then they went somewhere up the trail. I've never been, we didn't go to the end of the trail. They were gone for quite a time. I think it just dead ends back there, but I would have loved to have checked it out. So after that, we head back to this really cool rock labyrinth. Daniel and myself, you were probably bored because we launched the drones because we were outside of the boundary. Just so you know, because it's the National Wildlife Refuge, they do not permit drones or unmanned aircraft within their boundaries. So once we went past that boundary, we launched them. We got some really cool pictures, and then we headed back up the highway. And I think it was Valve 2 Road, if it serves correctly, that we went up and basically we just looked for a campsite. And I thought what was really nice at that point, it was similar to Queen Canyon, but it was definitely more open, right? You kind of had that one big plain, and then on our other side, you had the bluffs there, kind of with the sun setting. I thought it was a great spot. I was really happy with the first night.
Yeah, the first night was gorgeous, and the sunset and the rocks, the changing colors, and I couldn't think of a perfect spot to do our first night, especially after that. Well, our second night really, but our first night in Kofa.
Yeah, and once we hit that, I think. Did we pass anybody on the way out there? I don't think we did, right? From the time that we got back on dirt until we found our campsite, I don't think we passed anybody for like those.
No.
I think we only went like maybe 7 miles or whatever, but it was getting late. And I think everybody just wanted to set up camp and have dinner and crack open a cold one for those.
Yeah, it was what I was looking for, the wilderness piece. So there wasn't anybody that first day, which was great.
Yeah. So totally different experience. Once we got up to Valve 2 Road, there was nobody there. There was no RVs. There was nothing. It was totally the opposite of what you would see out in Queen Canyon, which is just like snowbirds everywhere within the first 2 miles. Once you kind of get on the rocky stuff, definitely not as many people. So we set up camp. We had a good dinner. I know Daniel and I had a few beers. The sunset was really nice, though.
Yeah, it was tremendous, and like you said, it just set up the whole trip, and those kinds of things are like a night like that sort of brings you down and resets your stress level, and kind of prepares you for the rest of the time. And that was exactly, I think, what we needed that night.
Yeah, especially, I mean, the day before for all of us was just like drive.
Right.
Get into Palm Springs. It's dark. You're trying to go to a campsite that you're not familiar with.
Right.
It's just a lot less stressful to find your campsite, know what you're getting into, being able to enjoy, relax. And then let's talk about the desert sunsets.
Oh gosh. I mean,
Yeah.
that's it's glorious. It's super close to heaven. I mean,
Yeah.
the shades of colors and the way, everything changes. And we had a lot of because I think we were in the area where there's a lot of military bases. There seemed to be a lot of contrails, which was interesting because it really gave a different texture to the sky as the sun was setting, and I really kind of enjoyed that. It was, the trippy thing was, is you remember when we started hearing, when we got a little closer, we started hearing the artillery going off too, which is that's a whole nother experience. But yeah, the desert sky is amazing, and I feel like I'm always drawn back to the desert, primarily because of the peace that the sunsets and the sunrises give you.
Yeah, it always seems to have these amazing clouds and these pink and orange hues,
Yeah.
whether it's sunset or sunrise, and that really, like you said, kind of set the stage. So day 2 is what we'll call it, on the trail. We wake up, we go out. We thought initially we didn't have any neighbors in the vicinity. Well, it turns out about a half mile up the road, there was
Right.
somebody in like an F-150 in a camper or whatever, and they had a nice little spot. But after that, I don't think we saw anybody for a while, right? Did we see anybody else that day? I don't know if we did. That might have been the only person that we saw that day.
I think we might have saw some side by sides at the very end of the day.
Maybe. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because okay. So I remember what we did. So
Yeah.
for those of you that are kind of wondering about the terrain, there's actually a lot of washes that you drive through, way more than I had anticipated. And you get a little bit of everything. You get kind of this deep, gravelly sand that you got to kind of power through because it sucks you down. But then we also hit some technical sections within the wash, which is probably the impetus behind you making the decision to get sliders, I bet, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I love the washes. I would have hated it on a motorcycle. It just would have been brutal on a dual sport. But
yeah, that would be.
Unless you had the right tires. But yeah, the washes were so much fun because we can make up time and just slide around, and it was fun driving. We're kind of jamming our way through there, and it was super cool. But then we'd come out of those washes, on occasion and drop up top and then drop back in, and that's where it got really rocky and got really sketchy. And I'm so thankful that I had a locker, in the TRD, because there's a couple spots I wouldn't have made it without the rear locker. And so that's something for people, I think, to remember, that if you don't have the right equipment, even at a base level like I have, it's going to be a little bit of trouble in there.
Yeah, and just to add some perspective for that, as we said at the beginning, John has a long bed, extra cab in his Tacoma, so it's a pretty long wheelbase. For me, I'm in an LX 570, which is basically the Lexus version of a Land Cruiser 200. I was in 4 high, and I made it through there fine. So, if you have long wheelbase, you're probably going to need a locker to maybe get through that one section or just pick the right line. But if you were in something like a 4Runner or a Jeep, you probably make it through there fine. In 4 level.
Yeah, I think
that.
you're a little taller than me too. You have a little more ground clearance. So I think that was helpful too. I had to be a little careful. I was looking back at some of the videos, and I was watching me going over some of those things. I'm like, man, those rocks are sharp. So that was a trip, and thankfully Daniel, he's so experienced that he was able to sort of guide me through that. But the truck, all in all, I'm super happy with the way the Tacoma handled that. I was, I got to get the right equipment for sure, but the truck handled itself pretty well. I think once I get the rock sliders and once I get the better skid plate, I think I would feel much more comfortable in there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was definitely a tight squeeze, and I was even nervous a little bit because I saw your undercarriage like right there.
Yeah.
But like you said, with Daniel spotting you, you got a good spotter telling you which line to take. It makes a world of difference.
No, absolutely.
Really
if I was by myself, yikes. That would have been rough.
Yeah. Yeah. I will say this. If you have a Sprinter 4x4, don't do the interior of this route. You could go visit like Queen Canyon and stuff, but you're going to struggle on some of these things. If you had like a Ford Econoliner 4x4 Quigley, you're probably fine, but don't take the Sprinter. You're also going to get it pinstriped to hell too, because some of these roads are a little bit tight.
I got some pinstripes. I will say that. So we were in the bushes a lot.
We did.
So, but that's what it is. That's what it's all about.
A lot of mesquite. So we get through the wash. We are traveling a little bit slower than I think I had anticipated, which is probably why we were gunning it in parts of the wash, and it was fun to do too. And there's nobody around. And we get to the Wilbanks cabin. And so do you remember the Wilbanks cabin?
I think so. That's the one where the hunters were at.
Oh, right? Wait, I'm sorry. We went to the Kofa cabin first.
Yeah.
We went to 2 cabins this day, and then we went to the wash after. So we went to the Kofa cabin. That one was kind of cool. I forget what the background on that was. Was it built by the CCC, I think in the 30s as well, or something like that?
I think that's the first one. Yeah, it was a CCC one. And it had it's first come, first serve. So you can just open the door and crash here if you want. I don't know that I'd rather crash in the truck, but it's there. You know, if you get cold, if it's super cold, I mean, it's an opportunity. It's a situation. So.
Yeah, so there's a number of homesteads out there, and I think at least 3 or maybe 4 cabins. As John said, you can actually go inside of all of them. You could camp in them if you want. I believe this first one actually had a wood furnace, right?
I don't remember, but it likely might have.
Yeah. And this one had a stone outside. The other ones were made of wood, but like lots of rat droppings and other stuff. I'm not sure I would want to stay in there unless, like you said, it was like 10 degrees out or something like that. I'd rather opt to stay in the truck or the tent or something like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. But it's cool to see the old buildings. You know, it's amazing. Throughout the whole time, I was shocked by the homesteads. And I mean, the people that would go out there in the 1800s and, in the desert and carve out a piece of land and property and build those stone things. I mean, they were real tough people.
Yeah, it's really impressive. So you have homesteads, you have old mining cabins. We'll talk a little bit about some of that mining history as we get to that portion of the route. So we hit the wash. That was fun. It was slow going, a little bit stressful. And then we got to the Wilbanks cabin.
Right.
And we didn't get to go inside of that one because we actually encountered somebody that was camping there as well. So I think that was like our first or second person we had seen that day. To just put this in perspective, the day before, going out to Skull Rock, at least the first 2 miles, we were probably passing 5 vehicles per mile or something like that, mostly just camping out there. This day, I think we encountered 2, maybe 3 groups the entire day. And
I think it was hunting season. So I know we saw some carcasses and such from, I think, quail. And then the Wilbanks cabin, they looked like they were hunters to me. So so I think that's the only people we saw out there were folks hunting.
Yeah, that's right. Because there was that little like ATV or side by side, and they were we had encountered them on the wash, and they were kind of driving slow, and they were in camo. So that would definitely make sense. And I kind of saw them going out after dark as well. So we decided, even though I think I proposed, I said, why don't we go camp over there? You said, no, let's just give them their space. And that was probably the right call. We drove back up towards the main road, and we got a nice little spot that, again, had a really great view, one side of the mountains. And then, like so many places in the desert, especially in Arizona, in the Sonoran Desert, you have mountains or bluffs here, and then just a big expansive flat area. And that's kind of what we camped in again.
Yeah, it was, and I loved both of those. And the beauty of, I think, all the spots we camped is it's pretty level. So, we didn't have issues with, having to level out the rigs so that we can get a decent night's sleep. So it was nice to have that kind of area. Very rocky for sure. And then we, every spot we stayed in, if I remember right, there was a fire ring already established. So it had been a place where people had been.
Yeah. And that was definitely nice to have a fire ring. California being hit so hard with the forest fires in 2020, obviously couldn't go to a lot of places for later this summer because they were closed. And when that did open, if you wanted to do primitive camping, it was cold camping. It was no fires allowed. So that was nice for me, at least. So night 2, we stayed over by the Hoodoo cabin, and I can't remember if on my camera, I got some really great pictures of the sunset this night. I think we got the clouds and everything going on, and then the sunrise as well. Just awesome both ways. It
is glorious because like you said, there was really you could see everything. So there was nothing sort of obstructing views on certain parts. I mean, obviously the bluffs are on one side, but that open expanse area is just tremendous. So it's it was really a photographer's dream to be out there.
Yeah. And I need to up my photography game. There's just so many opportunities out there. And we did have the coyotes that night, I think. Right?
Yeah.
The coyotes were howling that night, and that's always such a treat. The thing
Thomas enjoyed that.
got a little scared of it too, I think.
Yeah.
The thing that I find amazing, you find these jackrabbits and obviously coyotes and other animals. I saw a mule deer at one point running around the forest, and you have this cholla cacti or teddy bear cactus. And if you get anywhere remotely near it, I think you actually managed to avoid it. The first day when I was trying to film you guys, I barely brushed against a little nub on the ground and just stuck in my hiking boot. And then I got another one. They're awful.
They're no joke, man. They just they grab onto you, and it's like remember that it went through your shoe.
It did. Yeah. And, luckily, it didn't get me too bad, but it went straight through my Vibram sole on my hiking boot like nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
Crazy, sharp. So, and I think what did we say? One of the animals eat those. Was it the
bighorn sheep?
Will eat the cactus, right?
I don't know which cacti they eat. I can't imagine they would eat that one. That stuff is something
brutal.
Else.
Yeah.
But you avoided it, right?
Oh, I did. I watched you and Daniel struggle, and I'm like, I'm avoiding this like a plague. But it made me wonder, like, what happens if you run over that? I mean, if it catches your tire in the right way, and if it could go through your Vibram shoe, it could go through a tire.
I think our tires are okay. At least I have a 10-ply tire, with a pretty heavy load and all the different things. I think it's pretty difficult, especially all through that. But if you had some bald Honda Civic tires, I don't know. I wouldn't test it. I was honestly worried about Thomas stepping on it and not paying attention, because that was going to be a fiasco. Luckily, that didn't happen.
Yeah, it's true.
Day 3. We're back on the road again. This is kind of the name of the game. We're getting camp. We're going like 50, 60 miles every day. And I think we made some really good time this day. And part of the reason was that we kind of went up to the northeast quadrant of Kofa, and we actually left the refuge for a little bit. And we hit some big, wide, graded, kind of like county roads. And we're going pretty fast on them. I think I was going like 45 on them or something like that.
Yeah. You were nervous about not making I think you were happy after we made up some time that day, because we were kind of slogging along before that.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. That's how it goes. Obviously, we'd like to try to do as much as we can within the route, but things happen. People get flat tires. You encounter stuff that slows you down. Somebody breaks down. We'll talk about that later too.
Yeah, we will.
Yes. So we hit some county roads and we got cell phone service again. That was one of the interesting things. Yeah. Did we have cell phone?
We had the first
service the first night, which was really weird because there was nobody around. We just felt like we were in the middle of nowhere.
We had 5G, which I was shocked. It was fast.
Yeah.
I mean,
it was great.
It kind of sucked because all of us were looking at our phones, instead of talking to each other.
For a little bit. Yeah. Thomas was definitely like watching Netflix and whatever else he was doing.
He was kind of torqued when we didn't have cell service, and he had to he couldn't get Netflix in.
Yeah. That's
kids.
Like freaking iPad and the internet is like crack for kids, man. As soon as you give it to them and you tell them it's not there, game over. So we hit those county roads, and that just reminded me that I got cell service again. And I called my wife and called my mother-in-law so my son could talk to him, and hit both of his grandmas, and they were really happy to call him. And then we kind of looped back around, and I thought we kind of went through kind of a different zone. It kind of had those big volcanic black buttes with the black rock and everything like that. And we kind of had a pre-lunch break and everything. And we flew the drones for a little bit again.
Yeah. And again, that's what I was talking about, like the difference in topography. I mean, it was completely, different in terms of the black rock and such, more the lava flow stuff in the first couple of days.
Yeah, and what I would say about that section, it definitely has a different feel to it. But if you were pressed for time, I might cut that section out and just kind of skip those roads altogether and just kind of stick to the main route. You probably save yourself half a day or something.
Yeah, but unless you need to check him at home, it's a good spot to go.
That's true. right?
Yeah.
But you always have the first campsite too. But yeah, absolutely.
That's true.
And then we got over to the Hovater Homestead. Do you remember that one with the little saguaro cacti that were lined up in the?
Yeah, that was
That was
fascinating.
interesting.
Yeah, and it must have been a beautiful spot at one time because clearly they had done landscaping and there was a lot of care and intent put into that. It was a trip to roll up on that in the middle of nowhere. So it was almost like they were trying to build a resort there or something like that, some kind of a
Totally.
place to host people. But it was interesting.
Yeah, so basically, there's no cabin or homestead or anything there. It's just the site of where the home was. But they have their driveway. That's this little, like half circle.
Yeah.
And then there's saguaro cactus on both sides lining it. It's really cool. It's kind of like you go through it and you're expecting to see something, but unfortunately, nothing's there. It's kind of a cool experience, though. And then not too far from that. I'm trying to remember. I wrote all my notes down, and obviously some of the things that are coming back to me are not agreeing with what my notes say. But I think we went into the mountains that day, right? Injusur Pass. Was that a really nice?
Yeah. Yeah, we did head up and hit the altitude.
Yeah.
I mean, that wasn't that high in general. And then I remember a lot of washes also after we came down the other side.
Yeah, we were in a wash for a while, so we got up into the mountains again. Not super high elevation. I think we were like 2,000 feet up or something like that. And then we've had these awesome buttes and cliffs all around us on every side. And I think because we were in this wash, there was nowhere to camp. And I said, well, I don't want to camp in a wash just in case there's like a thunderstorm or something like that. So we were looking for somewhere to camp, and we found a nice little camp. You want to talk about like what you thought about that?
I think you said it was your favorite spot, wasn't it? That third spot?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it was just off a wash. It was a couple feet above the wash. Somebody had camped there before. There's a fire ring, but it was out again. I keep using the same words, but it's the reality of the situation. It was stunning. It was probably my favorite spot also. I got sunset pictures. I did the time lapse photo there, and it just was really breathtaking to be there, and it really felt protected too, which was really kind of great because it was sort of it was tucked in a little bit, but not super exposed, and a little bit off the wash in the road there. But it was great. Didn't hear any coyotes, but it was an amazing place to be for the evening.
I was a little bit nervous because we had a little bit of more than a breeze, but some wind kind of coming through on and off in the evening. And I was hoping we weren't going to get another situation like we had in Palm Springs where it was just blowing for 20, 30 miles an hour for like 4 hours at a time.
Yeah, I was worried too. And I was happy when after the sun went down, it actually died down, which, in the desert, obviously goes the other direction sometimes.
Yeah. So to just put a little perspective of how this particular camp spot is different than the other ones, a lot of the other ones that we camped at, or the two previous ones, had kind of bluffs or mountains on one side and then a big open expanse. This side, we were actually up in the mountains. So we had like a butte here, a really cool butte off in the distance, some smaller buttes here, and then just kind of in this nice little cradle. And I know I was looking for bighorn sheep. I didn't see any, unfortunately, but it just seemed like the perfect space where they might be, right? Like you had this big cliffs and mountains going up like 1,000 feet. So
that mountain was amazing. I took a lot of pictures of that mountain, and because the colors it changed as the sunset was amazing. But I was looking for the sheep too. I was hoping to see some, but they were hiding from us.
Yeah. So if you guys want to check it out, that's on Injusur Pass. You'll be in the wash. And when you get to the top, you'll know what we're talking about. You'll see these mountains and these buttes all around you. Just look for a place to camp. It's second to none. It's really spectacular. So we camped there. I think we all got some really great time lapses, photos, other stuff, a good night hanging out by the fire. And then day 4, which is kind of our final day in Kofa. I know Daniel was definitely a little bit nervous. He was a little bit lower on gas than both of us. And that kind of made us nervous. I had already put 3.5 gallons into my tank, not because I needed to, just because I wanted to top off a little. But just knowing that he had 5 gallons, I had 3.5, you had 5. I think we decided that we were probably going to cut out the last leg, and we'll talk about that in a second.
Right.
But basically, there's a final leg that goes up to, I think it's Big Eye Mine. And I don't even know if it was open. They close it from time to time because when they're doing artillery testing down at Yuma Proving Ground and stuff like that. But it's up a rocky Jeep trail. You're climbing elevation. So me and Daniel with the big V8s are going to be slurping up the gas. And just, I think by that time we were probably content with the experience that we got and everything like that. And we just didn't want to push it. So we had
I think it was like 10 in and 10 back, right? 10 miles in, 10 miles back, or
something
more.
like that. Yeah.
It wasn't a little loop around. It was a commitment. So
yeah, it was going to be probably 3 hours minimum, if not 4 hours up there and back, which is more than half a day usually. So we head out. And then I think the cool thing about this final leg is we got to see a number of the defunct mines as well as some active mines too. You seem to really enjoy that part. I'll let you kind of talk about your experience about that.
Yeah, I love that kind of stuff. Both of the defunct ones and the active ones. On the left, there was an active one. I forget the name of that. Was it the Kofa one? I forget which one that was.
So we went up to the Kofa. We went to one that wasn't on the map originally. We drove out there and we got to the stop sign that says patrolled by armed guard. Totally expected in Arizona.
Right, and that's where we saw the graveyard of the miners.
We came back around and then we went to the grave. They were all kind of in the same vicinity, but we checked out the old Pioneer Cemetery, which was cool too.
Yeah, that was cool. And then we drove by the other mine. So we passed the active mine and went to the defunct mine. We were able to go in and crawl into the miner's cabin that was there. It was open, and it had some interesting signage and things telling about when they were there and that. And it was really fascinating to see. You could see where they went into the mountain, and you could see the slurry, kind of the big piles of slurry there, and it obviously had a lot going on there at one time. It was quartzite, I think, was what they were mining there, if I remember right.
Quartzite, gold, some other stuff too. I assume the gold comes with the quartzite and stuff like that. So that was the Antares mining cabin. I was a little bit surprised I felt like that one, somebody was going to put their foot through the floor sometime soon.
Yeah, it was pretty rough.
I out of all the cabins we went to, that's the last one I think I would camp in, unless it was like 10 below or something like that.
Yeah. But if you remember the history, I think they said there was 2,000 or 3,000 people that were in that spot at one time.
Or 1,500. It was a lot though.
It was a full-on city right there at one point, or a big town.
Yeah.
So they must have been pulling a lot of money out of that mine to have that many people there. And you could see the old, some of the, the pipes for the water and such that were still in the ground and all rusted out, obviously, but you could see where it was. So some of the infrastructure was still there. And so that kind of stuff is really fascinating to me, specifically to see how they were doing things, 75 years ago, pretty amazing.
Yeah. Without any air conditioning, how do you get water? Right.
We're so wimpy now. We're so wimpy. But they were real tough people.
Yeah, it's impressive. You see these old ghost towns in places like Death Valley, and I'm like, we don't go traveling there in our rigs that have air conditioning in the middle of summer, and they were working out there and living out there, and it's something else. It's something else. Yeah, like you said, we've become soft. Yeah, there was a number. I think there was like an Evening Star mine. There was a North Star mine, which were the two right there. There was the Kofa, the King of Arizona mine that we passed. I can't remember all of their names. And then we kind of passed that. It looked like it was an active mine settlement. I couldn't tell if anybody was active there, but it looked like people had been there recently, and it was funky.
Yeah, I saw some like modern cars. I mean, there were newer cars that were up there, and so obviously there was activity. I didn't see it, like you said. I didn't see anybody working there at that time, but they all might have been in the mine at that point.
Yeah,
I mean, who knows? But there was clearly there was a headquarters there, and it was blocked off. So there was they're pulling stuff out of there still, which is cool.
Yeah, I wish we could have talked to one of those people. I think we kind of we hypothesized that maybe they went home for Thanksgiving or something like that. But I would love to know, like, what is it like living out here?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Something else. So we passed the mines. We talked about the active mining settlement, and then I think our final leg of the trip, at least before we got to the Yuma proving ground, was we went across that big, expansive plain,
Mm-hmm.
kind of between these, Arizona's kind of known for these sky islands. You have these small mountain ranges that just stick up out of these plains.
Mm-hmm.
And that's definitely what you have in Kofa. So we kind of made our way across this valley that's maybe like 10, 15 miles across to another mountain range.
Mm-hmm.
And I go on the walkie-talkie and I'm like, hey guys, do you see that thing over there in the distance? It's not moving. And at first you guys were like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And then we get close and you're like, oh yeah, there is something floating out there.
Yeah, I was properly freaked out at that point. I'm like, okay, are we like, we're in the middle of nowhere? Are we getting a UFO experience going on here? Because it seemed really out of place. Just this thing in the sky. And we found out what it was later, but yeah.
And we'll talk about that in a second. I think I told you my UFO experience one of the nights before, right? Yes, I did. Yeah. And so then that thing appeared.
I was tripping, man. I'm like, yo.
Yeah. I planted it there. It was all planned. I think I actually saw it on the first day. I remember seeing something out there and I was like, it looks like one of those big, like, is it a C5? I used to know all my military planes. Now I can't remember, like a C5 Galaxy, like the super big cargo one. Mm-hmm. And I saw it out there. That's what it looked like. It had this big silhouette, but it wasn't moving. And I forgot about it because obviously with everything else going on in the desert sunsets, I just forgot about it. Then I saw it again. I was like, hey, there's that thing again. What the heck is it?
Yeah.
And we'll talk about what it is as we kind of make our way through there. But there is a conclusion to this and rationale, and it's not a UFO or anything like that.
I thought it was a Chinook, just because it was hovering. So I'm thinking, well, maybe it's a big, a big helicopter. But then it hovered for like, I don't know, where we're probably an hour and a half. Yeah. I'm like, no, that's not. There's something else going on here.
Yeah. And then so the final leg of the route that we did, at least, we went through, I guess they're called the Castle Dome Mountains. So we came out of the plains. We were hitting some really fast, kind of like graded county roads again, making really good time. And I was like, sweet, we're going to get over there super fast. Now, here's the thing about Kofa. You hit these roads, and on the map, it looks like you're going to make decent time. But because of all the desert washes, you're going up and down and up and down and breaking and dipping. And we kind of hit that for like, I don't know, 10, 15 miles or whatever. I think we got through it in like an hour. And then we were back in the mountains again and really beautiful again.
Yeah, I love that section. I was looking back at some of my pictures. It was again, it was a unique, it was another unique sort of topography. It had two mountains on both sides and I got some really great pictures of that spot. It was almost like a little valley for a while, and then we dropped back in, and it was another breathtaking kind of unique area in Kofa.
Yeah, really, really spectacular. And then we start to see this UFO, as we'll call it, because we didn't know what the heck it was. And then we're like, it looks like a blimp, but it's not moving. It's just sitting there. So it was kind of like, well, what's going on? Maybe it's tied to the Yuma Proving Ground, which is that the Army? Do you know which branch of the military runs that?
Army. Yeah, it's Army.
It's Army. Yeah. I think you did some background on it too, right?
A little bit,
you were reading. So
yeah, it was, the funny thing, it was part of a larger structure for training, Patton trained the Second Army out there before World War II. So that's kind of, it actually, the history really goes back to the 1800s and before, but really it kind of kicked up during Patton. And then it became one of the premier proving grounds in the world. So like, Japan and NATO allies will send people there because it's so big and so vast and so varied terrain that you can test vehicles, you can obviously test mortars and large artillery and helicopters. So what I read was everything now that the military does is in terms of artillery and those kinds of things are tested there. So it's a pretty important
there. Wow.
Yeah, it's a pretty important spot in our national defense.
Yeah, that's impressive. And we'd heard some of the artillery going off. I think even was it that day or was it the day before?
I think it was the day before.
Yeah, so you can hear this stuff well over 10 miles away, going over mountain ranges. I mean, it's not gonna. You have to sit there and listen for it, right? It's not gonna like startle you or anything like that or ruin your wilderness experience. But you will hear a boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, it's almost like distant thunder in some ways, but it's super cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So the final leg of this route, we get through the mountains. We were kind of debating if we were going to go to the Castle Dome Mine Museum. We opted not to do it just because I think we knew we had a long drive ahead of us and we had to get back to the Bay Area. And we kind of decided, originally I thought we were going to stay in Kofa that night. We opted to get back towards like Palm Springs and then figure out where we wanted to go from there. We had lunch. We saw some lady walking through the desert, which was kind of weird.
Yeah, it was really weird.
Her car was parked a mile away and she said she was okay. So whatever, desert rat. And then we actually went to the Yuma Proving Ground.
We did.
Thomas loved it. You want to talk about it?
Yeah, it was awesome. So they've got this, before you get into the gates, the official gates, they have a tank museum there. And, they've got everything from some modern stuff to like a Sherman tank from World War II. And you can get up close and personal with it and take lots of pictures. You can't climb on them, but you can, see. It was it was a really cool part of our history. And just who knew that there were that many varied kinds of tanks? I didn't know that. So I learned some stuff. They had some artillery pieces there too that was cool, some rockets. And just a super kind of neat place to go and see some of our history and some of our, military stuff.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend checking out. It's actually an open air museum. So you just pull up to the parking lot and everything is right there sitting on concrete pads. There's like 20 different displays from tanks to heavy artillery, old missiles and missile launchers. So it's a really cool thing to check out.
Yeah, it's totally worth stopping by there if you're out that area.
So I forgot to mention, on our way to the proving ground, Thomas discovered this, a giant tether, or a leash as he called it, going up into the sky, going up to that blimp. So it turns out, let me find the name of this. It is on the proving grounds, and I actually looked this up today. I think it's called an aerostat balloon. And it sits up there at 15,000 feet via its tether, and there's actually 6 of them that are along the border down there. And it's the Department of Homeland Security that uses it to monitor the border and low-flying aircraft, people probably going across the border and making a drop of drugs or whatever. So that's what they're used for. I thought that was interesting and pretty cool.
Yeah, I was surprised that they'd put something like that right in the middle of the proving ground. But we initially thought it might be an observation post, some cameras up there just to see what was going for the proving ground itself. But yeah, it's part of the Homeland Security piece. And it was fascinating to see that. I've never seen anything like that before.
I know. Yeah, it was really interesting. So we do the route. We decide we're not going to go up to Big Eye Mine. We're just a little bit too low on gas, and we decide we want to head back to the Bay Area. I think we should tell the viewers about our final experience before we all head home. We decide we're going to go up to Enzo Borrego and try to find a place to camp. We get a burrito in Salton City. Great.
That place was legit, by the way. I don't know what the name of it was, but you should stop there.
Oh, yeah. It's basically the only place, which I find ironic, that serves other than Taco Bell, which I'm really glad we didn't go there. And we went to.
Man, I love some Taco Bell. I don't know what you're talking
about. if I can get that legit Mexican food, I'm going to go with that every single day. Every single day.
Yeah, but that place was cool. A little family-run joint, and and they were super sweet, and the food was just really good. I was really impressed.
Yeah, some hot salsa too. Yeah, I didn't realize it was that hot, and then I was like sweating everywhere, and I'm just a glutton for punishment, I guess.
Yeah.
So we figure out we got Overlander open, and we're like, well, where are we going to camp in Enzo Borrego? Should we go here? And we plotted out like 3 different spots. I think you found something that looked legit. And we said, let's do it. So you're leading the way.
Yep.
You have a 2018 Tacoma.
Yep.
What happens?
We head out towards Enzo Borrego, and there's a little a truck stop right there. As soon as I hit the truck stop, my truck started acting funky. And I got an error message that came up that said, you're pressing the brake and the gas simultaneously. And I'm like, what? So And it just would stop. It would go like 1 mile an hour. So I had to pull over real quick, and we were scratching our head. Now I'm freaked out at this point because it's like we're 500 miles from home. It's the day before Thanksgiving Eve. So we're trying to get home, to our families, and they're all obviously all anxious to see us. And we were just, it wouldn't go anywhere. So, I mean, Thomas has got a little more mechanic experience, I think, than I do, but
Thomas?
Not Thomas.
I was like, Daniel. He hasn't done that to me.
No, Daniel, sorry. so we're trying to figure out like what is going on. Is it the analog brake system? Is it what, we're pulling fuses, and I'm thinking like, crap, okay, I'm gonna have to call AAA. The nearest dealer was Indio, so that's like
Yeah.
40, 50 miles away.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we were in Brawley. I think that's the town we're in. So we're all scratching our heads, so we're all jumping on our phones. And I got on a Tacoma web forum and just start like cruising around it. And there was at the bottom of a long string of messages was one guy that said, "Oh, I just had this weird thing happen. If you blow out a tail light, it'll just jack the whole system." So I was like, "Oh, thank the Lord." So
Because your tail light went out. We knew that, right?
My tail light went out. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I knew there was a problem there, but I'd never experienced a car that had a tail light going out that would just totally disable the freaking vehicle. And that's craziness. So Toyota, if you're listening, you need to stop that. That's just bad news. But so
I don't think that's intentional. I if I had to guess, like some, the computer read something incorrectly and thought it was something that it isn't. But yeah, I agree. They need to fix that. Since then,
I've got I posted up in a couple places, and other people have mentioned they had the same problem.
Wow.
So it is I think it is a Toyota thing. So what we basically did is just pull the blown bulb out, and then everything worked again. So, yeah. But it was if that would have happened in the middle of Kofa, we'd have been screwed. Because there was the only way we found out was jumping on the internet, and there was obviously in most of the places we were at there was no cell service. So that kind of scared me a little bit because I was like, I don't know, Toyota that's something they got to look at because it's just crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, so, that is insane because, like you said, you literally could not drive out of there because you would apply the gas and then the brakes would just apply, right? Basically, the ABS was going crazy.
Yeah, you guys would have to try to pull me out of there. And I couldn't imagine going through those washes and up those hills with a tow strap. That would be brutal.
Yeah. Well,
but thankfully,
you get it done.
We would have, but thankfully we figured it out. But again, Toyota, hey, you guys, that's no bueno.
Yeah, I such a weird one, right? Yeah. Like, what the hell? So you were basically saying, guys, go ahead. I'm gonna call my wife and my family, and I'll figure it out. And then, thank God we figured that out. I think you just gotta be persistent sometimes.
Yeah.
So we get out to Enzo Borrego, or actually, I think we stayed in Ocotillo Wells is what we ended up staying in. We didn't try to get to Enzo Borrego.
Right.
Oh my God. Like going from Kofa and having no neighbors for maybe, I would say when we stayed in the mountains at Ingesor Pass, our nearest neighbors might've been 5 miles away.
Right.
To just RVs, lights,
crazy
side by sides everywhere. It was just like the total opposite. Right.
Yeah. It was like Times Square. I mean, it was obviously everyone was there for the Thanksgiving weekend, and there were the side by sides, but nighttime, with the huge lights on the front, and they were just cruising through. It looked like super fun, but it was it certainly weren't alone out there. It was we did find a nice little spot that sort of tucked us away, which is good, and it didn't bother me too much. But I was a little worried there for a while. It's like how crazy is this going to get tonight?
Yeah. So. Yeah. And I think we made a smart choice of going up a little further out and got away from all that madness. And I got a good night's rest, which I always want when I'm going to be, it was a long drive home.
It was.
I think I got home at 5:30 the next day. So that was Kofa. For somebody that has never been to Kofa or Southern Arizona, the Sonoran Desert, what would you tell them about this particular route? Maybe why should they consider it?
Well, the first is it's pretty unknown. So it's kind of virgin territory. I mean, we all know about the Mojave Road and we know about Death Valley and places in Joshua Tree, places like that. But this is sort of off the radar, and it's kind of a hidden gem. So, I would say, it's a place that we should probably all keep it quiet. So don't tell everybody, you guys, but it's certainly a place you should go to because it's of just the nature of it. And if you want to get away from the craziness in Death Valley and some of the other places, this is a great, option. I'd say don't go alone. I think this is something, even if you have a better rig than what I had, there's just enough sketchiness there. I think you probably want to have somebody else with you just in case. And take your time. It's really worth. I mean, the pace that we set to me was perfect. I mean, we got up 7-ish, had breakfast, packed up, hit the trail around 9:30, and then kind of tried to roll back in the trail by 4 and set up before dark. And that pace was, we took a good lunch break each day. It's really a doable sort of route without feeling like you're rushed and like crazy.
Totally.
Yeah. And I think, and again, I think, the right rig is important. Do not take your Subaru out there. Don't take your Sprinter van. Don't be afraid of, if you're afraid of pinstripes, then you probably shouldn't, this isn't your gig. But yeah, it's a fabulous, fabulous place. I would love to go back again and do it again, because I think I wouldn't be bored a second time. And maybe next time I'll see a mountain goat or a bighorn sheep.
Oh man, I hope so. The one thing we didn't talk about before we conclude the episode, we were talking about dual sport and everything. And I know you and I have talked, and the way that John and I actually met was actually on a tour that I led up in the Mendocino National Forest, right? Unfortunately, before it freaking burned to the ground. You are actually doing something similar on the dual sport side. So why don't you talk about that for a minute?
Yeah. So, you could see what I'm doing at bigthumpers.com. And we, I started running some tours and taking folks out to some of the various places around here. We've done a lot up in, locally here throughout Salinas Valley and up into Big Sur and those areas like that, and even around the few areas in the Bay Area that you have some dirt. But I had some plans to head back up into Mendocino, but then the fires hit, and COVID is sort of, keeping us grounded a little bit too. But
yeah,
the goal for Big Thumpers is really to similarly develop the community, and to get people into the out off the street and into the dirt, and to experience the wilderness, either in this case on a motorcycle, but also on a truck, and just invest in spend some time investing in the wilderness. A big piece of what I'm really interested in is protecting open spaces, both in terms of like environmentally protecting them, making sure that we're spreading the word about packing your stuff out and taking care of the wilderness where we're at, but also protecting the places to go, either in trucks or in motorcycles or wherever, and so that we can continue to use those open spaces as playgrounds and appropriately as playgrounds. So hopefully we're starting to see some traction and people interested, and I'm hoping to continue to partner with Ben and build the community and the dirt community in general, and find those places of intersection and common areas where we can partner and grow the community.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that was bigthumpers.com, right?
Bigthumpers.com.
And are you going to be doing any tours in 2021, or kind of where do things stand right now?
So, ideally I would love to. So I'm hoping to do at least, we're just getting off the ground, so I'm not trying to bite off more than I can chew. I have a day job. But like you do.
Touche. Yeah.
But, what I'd like to do, we're going to try to go up and do the Mendocino, Usal Beach and Shelter Cove route after Christmas. And I'd like to go back up there with dual sports. I think that'd be an appropriate first kind of bigger trip for folks. A lot of people go to Usal Beach, but I'm really interested in getting beyond that and up into some of the areas around there. So I'm going to try to do that after Christmas, and then we'll plan, some Big Sur. Right now, most of Big Sur is shut down. I was just down there on the bike last week, and I was really shocked. I was down there in July, and we rode South Coast Road, which is up off of Nacimiento Ferguson, and head south towards Goleta, I think it is. And it was beautiful. It was wonderful, but there were a lot of people up there. But since then, they shut it down to traffic, just because there's too many people out there. If you've ever been to Pruitt Ridge, it's kind of a crap show right now. There's just way too many people in cars, and the cars were tearing up the road. And then the fires hit, so you can't even go up Nacimiento Ferguson Road right now. So the point is I think we're gonna have to see how COVID sort of develops and how the fire seasons and how things go. So hopefully we can get back on Big Sur. It's such a beautiful route up through that area. Yeah, there's some beautiful spots on the other side on the between the 5 and the 101 in those mountains. It's super hot also, but so we'll do a lot of local stuff around here in the Bay Area, and then hopefully try to build some community and maybe even do some classes for new riders who want to get out and try to do some dual sport and dip their feet into that lifestyle.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some people that are in the overlanding community that are definitely interested in jumping on the
Yeah.
bike because it's similar, and I haven't
Yeah.
done it. I mean, I'm a big mountain biker and gravel rider and
Mhm.
stuff like that, but I imagine it's a different experience too because you're kind of more connected. You gotta stay on your
Yeah.
toes, right? Like
Yeah.
on the vehicle, you can bang up your truck or whatever, but on the bike, you could go down and really hurt yourself.
Yeah. You got to, like one of the things I tell everyone to invest in is get one of the InReach, um, devices or a spot, because, it could happen at any time, and you want to be able to sort of connect with the first responders if you need to. And also for
Yeah.
us, I mean, the beauty of the InReach was I was able to connect with my wife even when we were off grid, and just,
Mhm.
hey, let her know that I'm okay and everything like that. So if you got a couple $100, that's well worth investing in, both for motorcycle stuff and for trucks.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
I do want to talk to you about not on the show, but about Carrizo Plain and Los Padres down there. I think
Yeah.
that'd be a good
What
route
a
for
glorious
Super Bloom.
place. Yeah, we
Yeah,
were just down there, with a group of motorcycles about a month ago in Carrizo Plain, and it was tremendous, just absolutely tremendous.
yeah. I think that's one of those spots that I mean the word's kind of out with the Super Bloom recently, but not a ton of people know about it. And
Yeah.
like you said, it's awesome. But hey, John, wanted to thank you for coming on the show, sharing your thoughts about Kofa, coming on the trip with me. It's been really great to get to know you over these last couple of ventures that we've been on. So thank you so much. Again, that's bigthumpers.com. Do
Mhm.
you have anything on Instagram or anything like that where
I
we can
do. We
follow
have
you at?
Bay Area Big Thumpers on Instagram, and there's a Facebook page also. You can link to those from the website also.
Perfect. So, guys, that concludes episode 4 of the Overland Trail Guides podcast. Again, you can check us out at www.overlandtrailguides.com. We talked about the Kofa Pioneer Trail. We have, God, I don't even know how many routes we have on there now, but we have thousands of miles of routes. You get a GPX download that has the track. It tells you the conditions. It tells you points of interest. It gives you places you can camp. So basically everything you need to know if you want to do this route or not, and kind of what you are getting yourself into. So I think for our next episode, we're actually going to be talking about the Lost Coast.
All
So
right.
tune in a couple of weeks. And till then, happy trails.
All right. Thanks, Ben.